You will
You
never
will
succeed.
never succeed.
The words cut through the
Never do
classroom
you
like
hear
knives.
me? You are a
14-year-old
failure!
David Chen sat frozen at his desk, his pencil trembling in his hand, as his English teacher stood over him, red-faced, furious, her voice rising with each syllable. I asked you a simple question, David. Simple. What does a mockingbird symbolize in the novel? And you can't even answer it. I'm sorry. Sorry. Miss Sarah Mitchell's laugh was sharp, cruel. Sorry doesn't cut it. This is 9th grade, not kindergarten. We discussed this yesterday. Were you even paying attention, or were you just sitting there like you always do, staring into space like the lights are on but nobody's home? 30 students sat in dead silence, their eyes fixed on the spectacle unfolding in the third row. Some looked uncomfortable. Others, God help them, looked entertained. David's face burned. I did the reading. You just what? You just didn't understand it? You just didn't care enough to remember? You just thought you could coast by without actually using your brain. Ms. Mitchell slammed her hand on his desk. The sound echoed like a gunshot. Let me tell you something, David Chen, and I want the rest of you to listen too. She turned to address the entire class, using David's humiliation as a teaching moment. The real world doesn't care about excuses. The real world doesn't give you a participation trophy for showing up. The real world requires intelligence and effort, and frankly, I'm not seeing either from you. David's vision blurred. Don't cry. Don't cry in front of everyone. Don't give them that satisfaction. Ms. Mitchell, I'm sorry. I'll do better. His voice cracked. Do better? She leaned down, her face inches from his. David, you can't do better. This IS your better. This is your maximum capacity. And your maximum capacity is barely passing. A tear escaped down David's cheek. He tried to wipe it away quickly, but too late. She'd seen it. Everyone had seen it. Are you crying? Ms. Mitchell's voice dripped with disgust. You're crying? This is exactly your problem. You're weak. You're lazy. You're unmotivated. And honestly, she paused, and in that pause, David's entire future crystallized into a single moment of devastating clarity. You're not smart enough to succeed at anything. Do you understand me? If you don't fundamentally change who you are as a person, and I mean fundamentally, you're never going to amount to anything. Never. You'll be stuck in mediocrity forever because you're too stupid and too lazy to be anything else. The words landed like physical blows. David's tears flowed freely now. His hands shook. His breath came in short, painful gasps. Around him, the classroom was so quiet he could hear the fluorescent lights humming overhead. Go to the bathroom, Ms. Mitchell said, her voice suddenly flat, emotionless, as if she'd expended all her rage and had nothing left. Clean yourself up. You're disrupting my class. David stood on legs that barely supported him, grabbed the whole pass with shaking hands, and stumbled toward the door. Behind him, he heard the whispers starting. Oh, my God! That was brutal. Did you see his face? He made it to the bathroom, locked himself in the furthest door, and broke down completely, sobbing so hard he thought he might vomit, the words playing on repeat in his head. Too stupid. Never amount to anything. Not smart enough. Weak. Lazy. Worthless. He stayed there until the bell rang, then through lunch, then through 5th period, getting marked absent, not caring. When he finally emerged, red-eyed and hollow, he saw Ms. Mitchell in the hallway talking with another teacher, laughing about something. She glanced at him, and for a split second their eyes met. She looked away, kept talking, kept laughing, like nothing had happened, like she hadn't just destroyed a 14-year-old boy in front of his peers. Like the worst moment of David's life was so insignificant to her that it hadn't even registered. That was Wednesday, October 15th. By Friday, Sarah Mitchell had completely forgotten about the incident. It was just another frustrating day, just another struggling student, just another moment lost in the chaos of teaching 150 teenagers with inadequate support and mounting pressure to improve test scores. She moved on. David Chen never did. 10 years later, Sarah Mitchell sat at her kitchen table at 6:47 a.m. on a Tuesday morning, drinking coffee and scrolling through emails before school. She was 36 now, still teaching at Lincoln High. Older, hopefully wiser, though some days you wasn't sure about the wisdom part. Teaching had a way of hardening you or breaking you, and she'd managed to land somewhere in between. She clicked on an email that had arrived overnight. The subject line made her pause. Thank you for teaching me what I was worth. David Chen. David Chen. The name was vaguely familiar. A former student, probably. She got emails from former students occasionally, sometimes thanking her, sometimes asking for recommendation letters years too late. She clicked it open. Ms. Mitchell, I'm writing to let you know I'll be delivering the keynote address at the National Education Conference next month. The organizers asked me to speak about overcoming obstacles in education, and I immediately thought of you. You see, you played a pivotal role in my journey. You were the teacher who stood in front of your entire ninth grade English class and told me I was too stupid to succeed. The teacher who said I was lazy, weak, and would never amount to anything. The teacher who made me cry in front of 30 of my peers and then forgot about it by the end of the week. Sarah's coffee mug slipped from her fingers. It shattered on the tile floor, dark liquid spreading like blood. That teacher was you. I want you to know what happened after that day. I want you to know that I believed you. Completely. For 2 years, I walked through school like a ghost, convinced I was worthless. My GPA dropped from 3.2 to 2.1. I stopped trying because why bother when I'm too stupid to succeed anyway? But then something shifted. A guidance counselor helped me understand that your words were abuse, not truth. And I decided to prove you wrong. So I did. I brought my grades up, got into Stanford, discovered computer science, built a company from my dorm room. You called me stupid. You said I'd never amount to anything. I'm now the founder and CEO of Chen Technologies. We just reached a $1.2 billion valuation. We employ 3,000 people across 12 countries. Forbes named me one of their 30 under 30 entrepreneurs. Last year, I was invited to speak at the White House about innovation in education technology. Sarah couldn't breathe. I'm not writing this to brag. I'm writing because I spent 10 years, proving wrong the words you said in 60 seconds. I built a billion-dollar company partly out of spite, partly out of survival, and entirely because of the damage you did. You destroyed a 14-year-old boy and then forgot about it immediately. I know you forgot because I saw you in the hallway 2 days later, and you smiled at me like nothing happened. What was a defining trauma of my adolescence was so insignificant to you that it didn't even leave a mark on your memory. I've forgiven you. I had to, for my own sanity. But I'll never forget. And I wanted you to know, despite what you said, despite what you made me believe about myself, I did amount to something. I just wish I'd done it for better reasons and proving my ninth grade English teacher wrong. I hope this email finds you well. I hope you're a better teacher now. I hope no other student has had to carry your cruelty the way I did. Sincerely, David Chen, founder and CEO, Chen Technologies. Sarah read the email 3 times. Then she ran to the bathroom and vomited. Sarah sat on her bathroom floor, shaking, her mind desperately trying to reconstruct a memory she'd buried so deep she convinced herself it never happened. David Chen. David Chen. She pulled out her phone with trembling hands and searched. David Chen Technologies. The results exploded across her screen. Forbes, the reluctant billionaire, how David Chen built an empire to prove everyone wrong. TechCrunch, Chen Technologies hits unicorn status at record speed. Wall Street Journal, David Chen's journey from high school dropout risk to tech titan. She clicked on a video interview. A man in his early 30s, handsome, composed, wearing an expensive suit, sat across from a journalist. So, David, the interviewer said, you're famous for saying that anger was your greatest motivator. What did you mean by that? David's smile was sad. I spent my teenage years being told I wasn't good enough, that I was stupid, that I'd never succeed. So I got angry, and I channeled that anger into proving those people wrong. Who told you that? Parents? Coaches? A teacher? David's expression darkened. A teacher who I won't name publicly, but who told me, in front of my entire class, that I was too stupid to amount to anything. I believed her for a long time, and then I spent a decade proving her wrong. Have you ever confronted this teacher? I wrote her an email recently. I wanted her to know that her words didn't define me. That I survived despite what she said, not because of it. How did she respond? I don't know yet. I just sent it this morning. The video was dated yesterday. Sarah's hand shook so violently she almost dropped her phone. Fragments of memory were surfacing now. A boy at a desk. Her own voice, sharp with frustration. The uncomfortable silence of a classroom watching someone break. Oh, God! She had said it. She'd stood in front of her class and called a 14-year-old boy stupid. Told him he'd never amount to anything. Made him cry in front of his peers. And then she'd what? Gone to lunch? Taught her next class? Driven home and watched TV and slept peacefully while that boy's world shattered around him? Sarah pulled up her old teaching records. 9th grade English, 2014 to 2015 school year. There he was, David Chen. Final grade, C-. She clicked on her note from parent-teacher conferences that year. David is a struggling student who seems unmotivated and disengaged. Recommend additional support. Struggling, unmotivated, disengaged. Nothing about her own cruelty. Nothing about public humiliation. Nothing about the abuse she'd inflicted. She documented his failure without acknowledging her role in creating it. Sarah's phone rang. The school. She was supposed to be there in 20 minutes. She called in sick. First time in 3 years. Then she sat on her bathroom floor and cried. For 3 days, Sarah existed in a fog of horror and self-recrimination. She couldn't eat, couldn't sleep. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw David's face, or what she imagined his face must have looked like. Tear-streaked, devastated, betrayed. She searched everything she could find about him online. Stanford computer science degree. Summa cum laude. Founded Chen Technologies at 24. The company built collaboration platforms for educational institutions. Of course it did. Of course he dedicated his career to fixing the education system that had failed him. She watched interview after interview. In each one, David was articulate, passionate, brilliant. Everything she'd said he wasn't. In one interview, the reporter asked, "What would you say to young people who've been told they're not smart enough?" David looked directly into the camera. "I'd tell them that whoever said that was wrong. That intelligence comes in many forms. That struggling with one thing doesn't mean you're stupid. It means you're human. And I'd tell them that the person who called them stupid probably forgot about it immediately, which says more about that person than it does about them." Sarah had to pause the video because she was crying too hard to see the screen. On the 4th day, she tried to write a response. "David, I'm so sorry. I don't remember saying those exact words, but I believe you. I was wrong. You were never stupid. I was a terrible teacher and an even worse person. Delete. Mr. Chen, reading your email destroyed me. I can't believe I said those things. I can't believe I forgot. I'm horrified by who I was. Please know that you were right. I did forget, and that's unforgivable. Delete. David, there's nothing I can say that will undo the damage. But I need you to know I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Delete." She wrote and deleted 17 drafts over 2 days. Nothing felt adequate. How do you apologize for forgetting the worst moment of someone's life? How do you acknowledge damage you can't repair? Finally, she wrote something raw and honest. "David, you're right. I forgot. The worst moment of your adolescence didn't even register in my memory. I've spent the past 3 days trying to remember exactly what I said, and I can only recall fragments. A boy crying. My own voice, cruel and sharp. The silence of a classroom watching. I don't remember the specific words because they didn't matter to me. And that's the most horrifying part. I destroyed you with words so casual I didn't bother to remember them. I've been teaching for 13 years. I've had thousands of students. And I can now say with certainty, you are the student I failed most completely. Not because you got AC-, because I convinced you that you were worthless, and then I moved on with my life while you spent a decade carrying my cruelty. I'm sorry. Those words are pathetically inadequate, but they are all I have. You were never stupid. You were never lazy or weak or any of the things I said. You were a smart, sensitive kid who deserved a teacher who saw your potential instead of one who destroyed your confidence. I can't undo it. I can't take back those words. I can't give you back the years you spent believing you were worthless. But I want you to know, I remember now, and I will never, ever forget again. I'm glad you succeeded. I'm glad you proved me wrong. I'm glad you survived. I'm sorry I made you have to. Sarah Mitchell. She hit send before she could change her mind. David's response came 18 hours later. Sarah had checked her email every 15 minutes, stomach churning with anxiety. Sarah, thank you for the apology. It means something, even if it doesn't fix anything. I need you to understand what happened after that day in your classroom. I went home and told my parents I was stupid. They were immigrants who barely spoke English, working 70-hour weeks at their restaurant, and they had no idea how to help me. They just kept saying, study harder, without understanding that I'd stopped believing studying would make a difference. For 2 years, I was a ghost. My grades collapsed. I stopped participating in class. I stopped trying. Because why bother when I'm fundamentally too stupid to succeed? I thought about suicide 3 times. Never attempted it, but I thought about it, planned it in my head. Imagine what it would be like to just stop existing. To stop being the stupid, worthless kid everyone had to tolerate. Sarah gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. A guidance counselor saved my life. Mr. Harrison. He saw my grades dropping and pulled me aside. Asked what happened. I told him about you. About what you said. He was furious. He said what you did was abuse. That your words were a reflection of your failure, not mine. He helped me understand that I wasn't stupid. I was traumatized. That was the turning point. I decided to prove you wrong. Not for me, but out of spite. I wanted to shove my success in your face. I wanted you to see what you'd almost destroyed. I brought my grades up through sheer determination and rage. Got into Stanford. Excelled there because every A was a middle finger to you. Built a company because I needed to prove I wasn't worthless. And it worked. I'm successful by every conventional measure. $1 billion company. Fame. Influence. Everything you said I'd never achieve. But here's what you need to know. That success is hollow. I'm 34 years old, and I still hear your voice when I struggle with something difficult. I'm in therapy twice a week trying to unpack the belief that I'm not good enough. I've sabotaged relationships because I don't believe I deserve love. I work 80-hour weeks not because I love my job, but because stopping feels like admitting you were right. I built a $1 billion company to prove my 9th grade English teacher wrong. Think about how fucked up that is. You asked if I've forgiven you. I have, but forgiveness doesn't mean the damage is gone. It means I'm trying to move forward despite it. You destroyed a child and forgot about it. That's your legacy, not your apology. The destruction. I hope you're a better teacher now. I hope you think before you speak. I hope no other student spends 10 years proving you wrong. Because proving you wrong didn't make me happy. It just made me tired. David. Sarah read the email through tears that wouldn't stop. He'd thought about suicide. 3 times. Because of her. She ran to the bathroom and vomited again. Sarah called the National Education Conference organizers. I'd like to register for next month's conference, she said, her voice hollow. Wonderful. Are you interested in any particular sessions? The keynote. David Chen's keynote. Oh, that's going to be incredible. His speaking about overcoming educational trauma. It's already our most registered session. Educational trauma. Trauma she'd inflicted. I'll be there, Sarah said. She hung up and bought a plane ticket. Requested time off from school. Told no one why she was going. The next 3 weeks passed in a haze. She taught her classes, but differently now. Every time she felt frustration rising, every time she wanted to snap at a struggling student, she heard David's words. I thought about suicide 3 times. So instead of snapping, she paused, breathed, asked questions instead of making accusations. Are you okay? Is something going on? Do you need help with this? Let's work through it together. I can see you're struggling. What can I do to support you? Her students noticed a change. Ms. Mitchell, are you feeling okay? One asked. You seem different. I'm trying to be better, Sarah said honestly.
Thank you. It's an honor to be here. Today, I challenge you to see obstacles as opportunities. Together, we can innovate.
Educators, all there to hear the brilliant young CEO talk about education. David took the stage to thunderous applause. He looked older than in the videos, more tired, but composed, professional, every inch a successful businessman. "Thank you for being here," he began. "I want to tell you a story about words and the damage they can do." The room fell silent. When I was 14 years old, I was a pretty average student. BS mostly, some A's. I tried hard, cared about school, had dreams of maybe becoming an engineer or a teacher. He paused, his hands gripping the podium. Then one day in ninth grade English class, my teacher called on me to answer a question about To Kill a Mockingbird. I froze, couldn't remember the answer, and my teacher's response was to destroy me in front of 30 of my peers. Sarah felt every eye in the room on her, even though no one knew she was there. She told me I was stupid, that I was lazy and weak, that I would never amount to anything. She said these things loudly, publicly, while I cried at my desk. And then she sent me to the bathroom to clean myself up because I was disrupting her class. Gasps rippled through the audience. That teacher forgot about the incident immediately. I know because I saw her 2 days later, and she smiled at me like nothing had happened. What was the worst moment of my adolescence was so insignificant to her that it didn't even register. David's voice was steady, but Sarah could hear the pain underneath. I believed what she said. For 2 years, I completely believed I was too stupid to succeed. My grades collapsed. My self-worth evaporated. I thought about killing myself because I couldn't imagine a future where I mattered. Several people in the audience were crying now, but I had a guidance counselor, Mr. Harrison, who saw me drowning. He told me that what my teacher did was abuse, that her words were her failure, not mine. And he helped me understand that I had a choice. I could let her word define me, or I could prove her wrong. David smiled, but it was sad, so I spent the next 10 years proving her wrong. I brought my grades up through spite and rage, got into Stanford, built $1 billion company, achieved everything she said I never would. He paused, looking out at the audience. And you know what? It didn't make me happy, because success built on spite is hollow. I'm 34 years old, I'm rich and successful and influential, and I'm still in therapy unpacking the belief that I'm worthless. I still hear her voice when I struggle with anything difficult. I still have to consciously reject the idea that I'm too stupid to succeed. The room was silent except for scattered crying. I'm telling you this not to shame one teacher, but to illustrate the power you have. Every word you speak to a student carries weight. Every casual cruelty, every moment of frustration expressed as personal attack. Every time you tell a struggling student they're not good enough, those words don't disappear. He pulled out a piece of paper. I tracked down that teacher, sent her an email. She apologized. She clearly regrets what she did. She spent the past few weeks trying to make amends. Sarah's heart stopped, and I forgave her, because holding on to anger was exhausting. But forgiveness doesn't erase damage. David looked directly at the section where Sarah was sitting. She didn't know if he could see her specifically, but it felt like he was looking right at her. I want that teacher to know something. I want all of you to know something. You have enormous power. You can build students up or tear them down with a single sentence. Choose carefully, because the student you casually destroy today might spend the next decade trying to prove they deserve to exist. He took a breath. I survived. I succeeded despite what she said, not because of it. But I shouldn't have had to spend 10 years proving my worth to someone who forgot about me by lunchtime. The applause when he finished was thunderous, but subdued, thoughtful rather than celebratory. Sarah sat frozen in her seat as people filed out around her. She couldn't move, couldn't breathe. When the room finally emptied, she saw David standing near the stage, talking to conference organizers. She stood on shaking legs and walked toward him. He saw her coming. His expression flickered. Surprise, then something softer. Recognition. "Ms. Mitchell," he said quietly. "I'm so sorry," she whispered. "I'm so sorry." The organizers looked between them, sensing something heavy in the air, and quietly excused themselves. David and Sarah stood facing each other in the empty ballroom. Teacher and former student, separated by 10 years in a chasm of damage. "I listened to your speech," Sarah said, tears streaming down her face. "Every word. And David, I don't know how to live with what I did to you." "You live with it the way I've lived with what you said," David replied. "You carry it. You let it change you." I wanted to die when I read your email. When I realized what I'd done. Don't. David's voice was sharp. Don't make this about your pain. I'm not interested in absolving you of guilt. Sarah flinched but nodded. You're right. I'm sorry. Stop apologizing and start changing. I am. Every day I think about what I did to you, and I make sure I never do it again. David studied her face. Good. Can we? Sarah's voice broke. Can we talk? Really talk? I'll buy you coffee, dinner, whatever you want. I just need to understand. I need to know how to make this mean something. David was quiet for a long moment. Okay, he said finally. Let's talk. They sat in the hotel bar, two people navigating an impossible conversation. Sarah ordered wine. David ordered coffee. Neither of them touched their drinks. I want you to know something, Sarah began. After I got your email, I spent days trying to remember exactly what I said to you. And I couldn't. The specific words were gone. I remember being frustrated. I remember a confrontation. But the details. She shook her head. Vanished. That's what makes it so brutal, David said. The worst thing you ever did to someone was so insignificant to you that your brain didn't bother storing it. I know, and that's what I can't live with. The asymmetry of it. Tell me about that day, David said. Tell me what you remember. Sarah took a breath. I remember being overwhelmed. I was 26 in my third year of teaching. I had 150 students across 4 classes. The administration was pressuring me to improve test scores. I was working 70 hours a week and still feeling like I was failing. That's context, not an excuse. I know. I'm not trying to excuse it. I'm trying to explain how someone becomes the kind of person who destroys a child and forgets about it. David waited. I was frustrated because students weren't doing the reading, weren't participating. And you, Sarah's voice caught. You were quiet, always quiet. And when I called on you and you couldn't answer, something in me just snapped. Why me? Why not any of the other students who couldn't answer? Sarah was quiet for a long time. I don't know. Maybe because you looked like an easy target. Because you wouldn't fight back. Because taking out my frustration on you felt safer than addressing the real problems. Which were? That I was burnt out. That I was a bad teacher. That I didn't know how to reach struggling students, so I blamed them instead of examining my own failures. David leaned back. At least you're being honest. I don't deserve credit for honesty when I'm being honest about being a monster. You weren't a monster. You were a young, burnt-out teacher who did something monstrous. There's a difference. Sarah looked at him with tears in her eyes. How are you this generous? After what I did. I'm not being generous. I'm being accurate. Monsters don't regret what they do. You clearly regret it. Regret doesn't undo damage. No, David agreed. It doesn't. They sat in silence. Can I ask you something? Sarah said, in your email, you said you thought about suicide. 3 times. David's jaw tightened. I did. Tell me about that, please. I need to understand the full scope of what I did. David took a long drink of coffee. When he spoke, his voice was distant, like he was reading from a script. The first time was about 3 months after that day. I was failing your class and 2 others. My parents were disappointed. My friends had stopped inviting me to things because I was always miserable. And I just thought, what's the point? If I'm too stupid to succeed, why keep trying? Sarah's hand covered her mouth. I stood on the roof of my apartment building for 20 minutes. Just stood there, looking down, thinking how easy it would be to step off. How I wouldn't have to be stupid anymore. What stopped you? My little sister. She was 8. I thought about her finding out I'd killed myself and I couldn't do it. Sarah was crying silently. The second time was in 10th grade. I brought my grades up a little, but I still heard your voice constantly. You're too stupid. You'll never amount to anything. I took a bottle of my mom's sleeping pills from the medicine cabinet. Sat on my bed with them for an hour. David. I didn't take them, but I thought about it. Carefully calculated how many would be enough. And the third time, junior year, after a college counselor told me my GPA wasn't good enough for top schools. I thought she was right. Ms. Mitchell was right. I'm not smart enough. I wrote a note and everything. Sarah couldn't breathe. My guidance counselor found the note in my backpack when I left it in his office. He sat with me for 3 hours, told me what you did was abuse, told me I wasn't defined by your words. Saved my life. Mr. Harrison, David confirmed, is the reason I'm alive. Not you. You're the reason I almost died. The words hung between them like a verdict. I'm sorry, Sarah whispered. God, David, I'm so sorry. I know you are, but sorry doesn't give me back those years. Sorry doesn't erase the therapy bills or the nightmares or the constant battle to believe I'm good enough. What can I do? Please, tell me what I can do to make this right. David looked at her for a long moment. Be a better teacher. That's all. Be the teacher I needed instead of the teacher you were. I swear to you, Prove it. Don't tell me. Show me. Sarah returned to teaching like a woman possessed. Every student became David. Every moment of frustration became an opportunity to choose differently. When Marcus fell asleep in class for the third time, she didn't shame him. She pulled him aside and asked what was wrong. He was working night shifts to help his single mother. She helped him get financial aid so he could quit the job and focus on school. When Jasmine struggled with every single assignment, Sarah didn't label her as lazy. She asked for a learning assessment. Jasmine had dyslexia that had never been diagnosed. With proper accommodations, she went from DS to BS. When Tyler talked back in class, Sarah didn't send him to the principal. She asked why he was angry. His father had just been deployed overseas. Tyler was terrified and acting out. Sarah connected him with the school counselor. Every single student who walked into her classroom carried something she couldn't see, and instead of punishing them for it, she started asking about it. Her teaching evaluations that year were transformed. Ms. Mitchell actually cares about us as people, not just as test scores. She makes me feel safe to struggle without feeling stupid. Even when I'm failing, she doesn't make me feel like a failure. That last comment made Sarah cry for 20 minutes. 6 months after the conference, Sarah received another email from David. Sarah, I wanted you to know I'm starting a new project. The Second Chance Foundation. It's dedicated to providing free tutoring, mentorship, and mental health support to students who've been told they're not smart enough. Students who've been shamed, dismissed, or destroyed by the education system. I'm calling it Second Chance because everyone deserves a second chance to believe in themselves. I thought you might want to know. David. Sarah replied immediately. David, that's extraordinary. I'd like to donate if you'll accept my contribution. And if you ever need volunteer tutors, I'd be honored to help. I know I'm probably the last person you want involved in this, but the offer stands. Sarah, his response. I'll accept both the donation and the help. You're not the same teacher you were. People can change. I'm proof of that. Our first tutoring session is next Saturday. Can you be there? Sarah showed up at 8 a.m. with coffee and lesson plans and a heart full of determination to make this mean something. 2 years later, Sarah Mitchell stood in front of her 10th grade English class, teaching to kill a mockingbird. What does a mockingbird symbolize? She asked. A hand went up. Innocence. Yes. Can you elaborate? The student did, thoughtfully and well. Sarah praised her. Another hand. It also represents people who are vulnerable, who can't defend themselves. Exactly. Anyone else? A quiet boy in the back, so much like David had been, raised his hand hesitantly. I think maybe it's about how we destroy things without meaning to. Sarah felt her heart clench. Tell me more about that. The boy elaborated, gaining confidence. Sarah listened, encouraged, built on his ideas. After class, she pulled him aside. That was brilliant analysis today, Marcus. You have a real gift for seeing deeper meanings. Marcus looked shocked. Really? I thought maybe I was wrong. Not wrong at all. You're smarter than you think. Don't let anyone, including yourself, tell you otherwise. He left glowing. Sarah watched him go and thought, that's one student I didn't damage. Her phone buzzed. A text from David. How was class today? They'd been texting periodically over the past 2 years. Not friends, exactly, but something. Two people bound by shared damage, working toward shared healing. Good. Had a student who reminded me of you. Made sure to build him up instead of tearing him down. Good. That's the point. How's the foundation? We just hit 10,000 students served. 87% grade improvement rate. 93% report feeling more confident. David, that's incredible. It's what should have existed when I was 14. Sarah stared at that message for a long time, then typed, I'm sorry it didn't. I'm sorry you had to build it yourself. I know, but at least something good came from it. 3 years after the email, Sarah stood in a conference room with 20 other volunteer tutors from the Second Chance Foundation. David was at the front, presenting data on their impact. 3 years ago, we started with one goal: make sure no student feels the way I felt when I was told I was too stupid to succeed, he said. Today, we've served over 15,000 students. The average GPA improvement is 1.3 points. But the statistic I'm most proud of is this: 98% of our students report feeling seen. Applause filled the room. I want to highlight one of our most dedicated volunteers, David continued. She's been with us since the beginning. She tutors 15 hours a week on top of her full-time teaching job. She's helped 63 students raise their grades and rebuild their confidence. He clicked to the next slide. Sarah's photo appeared. Sarah Mitchell has been instrumental in our success. She's living proof that people can change. That damage doesn't have to be the end of the story. Sarah's eyes filled with tears as the room applauded. After the meeting, David pulled her aside. Thank you, he said quietly. For what? You're the one doing all this. For proving that people can change. For being the teacher I needed, even if it's 15 years too late for me. It's not too late. I'm still trying to make it up to you. You don't have to make it up to me, David said. You just have to make sure no one else goes through what I did. And you're doing that. Sarah wiped her eyes. I tell my students about you. Not your name, but the story. How I hurt someone and learned from it. How words matter. Some of them have told me it changed how they think about their own power. Good. That's how damage becomes meaningful. By preventing more damage. 5 years after the email, David Chen stood on stage at the National Education Conference, his third keynote there. This time, Sarah Mitchell sat in the front row where he could see her. 5 years ago, I stood on this stage and told you about a teacher who destroyed me, David began. Today, I want to tell you about the same teacher who spent 5 years proving people can change. He clicked to a photo of Sarah working with a student. Ms. Mitchell heard my first speech. She could have gotten defensive, could have denied it. Instead, she did something harder. She remembered. She acknowledged the damage she'd done. She apologized, and then she changed. Sarah's hands gripped her chair. For the past 5 years, Ms. Mitchell has been one of our foundation's most dedicated volunteers. She's tutored over 100 students, written recommendation letters that got kids into college, been exactly the kind of teacher who builds up instead of tearing down. He paused, emotion visible. She can't undo what she did to me. The damage is permanent. I still hear her voice sometimes. I still struggle with self-worth. But she's preventing that damage from happening to others. And that matters enormously. He looked at Sarah. We can't change the past, but we can change what we do next. Ms. Mitchell taught me that. She was a bad teacher who became a great one. She hurt me and then spent years helping others. She forgot and then made sure she'd never forget again. Tears streamed down Sarah's face. If you ever said something cool to a student, and let's be honest, most of you have a choice. You can forget about it and move on, or you can remember, acknowledge, change, and make it mean something. He smiled at Sarah. Thank you, Ms. Mitchell, for making it mean something. The standing ovation lasted 3 minutes. After the speech, Sarah found David in the hallway outside the ballroom. Thank you, she said, for what you said up there. I meant every word. I still carry what I did, every single day. I know. I still carry what you said, but we're both carrying it differently now. Sarah nodded. Do you think you'll ever fully heal from it? David considered the question. I don't know. Maybe not, but I'm healing more than I would have if you hadn't changed. Your growth helps my healing. That's the weird thing about it. I'm glad. I wish I could do more. You're doing enough. You're being the teacher I needed. That's all I ever wanted. They stood together in the conference hall, two people forever connected by 60 seconds of cruelty and 5 years of trying to transform it into something meaningful. I'm proud of you, David said, for changing, for being brave enough to face what you did instead of running from it. I'm proud of you, too, for surviving, for building something beautiful out of something ugly. They hugged, no longer teacher and student, but two flawed humans who'd found a way forward through the wreckage. 10 years later, Sarah Mitchell sat in her classroom after school, grading essays. A soft knock on the door made her look up. A young woman stood there, nervous. Ms. Mitchell, can I talk to you? Of course. Come in. The girl sat down, fidgeting. I'm really struggling in this class, and I'm scared to tell you because I don't want you to think I'm stupid. Sarah set down her pen and looked at the girl, really looked at her. You're not stupid, she said firmly. Struggling doesn't mean stupid. It means you're learning something hard, and I'm here to help you learn it. The girl's eyes filled with tears. Really? You're not disappointed in me? Not even a little. Tell me what you're struggling with, and we'll figure it out together. They spent an hour working through the material. When the girl finally understood, she lit up like sunrise. Thank you, Ms. Mitchell. You're the first teacher who's made me feel like I can actually do this. You can. I believe in you. After the girl left, Sarah sat alone in her classroom, surrounded by the ghosts of all her former students, the ones she'd helped and the ones she'd nearly destroyed. She thought about David Chen, now 44, running a billion-dollar company and a foundation that had helped 50,000 students. She thought about the boy he'd been, crying at his desk. She thought about the teacher she'd been, who'd forgotten him by lunch. And she thought about who they both were now, two people forever connected by 60 seconds of cruelty and 14 years of transforming it into meaning. Her phone buzzed. A text from David. Just funded scholarships for 100 students who were told they weren't smart enough. Thought you'd want to know. Sarah smiled through tears and typed back. That's beautiful. You're changing the world. We're changing it. Together. Sarah looked at those words for a long time. We're changing it. Together. She couldn't undo the damage, but she could make sure it never happened again. And in the space between those two truths, Sarah Mitchell had found something like redemption. Not forgiveness from David. She had that, but something harder and more important. The knowledge that damage could be transformed into purpose. That cruelty could become compassion. That the worst thing she'd ever done could become the catalyst for the best thing she would do. One student at a time. One kind word at a time. One chance to choose differently, over and over, for the rest of her life.